baby. Welcome back to podcast Room 303, episode 195. I'm your host, Jermaine Mendez. This is my co-host, Nicholas Moorhan. And as always, we have with us the EPE. For those of you who've been living under a rock, it's been a pretty action-packed sports week. We've had the NFL draft kick off and complete. Hopefully, the hope that is now burgeoning in your heart will lead to some impressive results. For those of you who have teams still in the NBA and NHL playoffs, congratulations. That is everyone except for Nick, since he's at home with them. How are you doing this evening, Nick?
Maybe not as distraught as the other executive producer on this podcast about the Colorado Avalanche. I mean, you've seen over the last 6 years of Avs playoff hockey, when a team is more physical than them and is just harder working, that team generally wins a lot of games.
Yeah.
And I saw it from the first drop of the puck. The Avs didn't win the first 5 periods of that series. We'll get into it later. But, I mean, I'm not disappointed. The Avs don't win back-to-back cups. I didn't expect them to win back-to-back cups, right? I've been saying all year long, They don't have a third-line center. They lost Burakovsky, and they lost Gabe Landeskog. Those are huge pieces. I guarantee you if they have Gabe Landeskog back in Kadri, this team repeats because we had a better goalie. But I digress. Now it's time for Rockies baseball.
They've accomplished a rare feat, right? 20 losses before they got 10 wins. Yeah, but we'll get into the NBA and NHL on another episode. On today's episode, we will actually be getting into the Kentucky Derby as well as the NFL Draft. What we'll do, just to keep this short and concise, each one of us will give one winner, one loser, and we'll end up with 3 and 3 total. You can obviously submit honorable mentions and talk about anyone that you want to talk about, but that's just kind of the way we'll go with that situation. So we'll end up with 3 winners, 3 losers total, 1 submitted from each of us. And today's pop culture pick'em. Actually, we're doing Communion with E on this episode, or PCP. We're doing Communion with E, so whatever Eric's cooked up. So he's probably scrambling over there right now since he doesn't have anything. But we'll get into that one at the end of the podcast since he's sucked into the current affairs of Boston versus Philadelphia. There's about 1 minute left as of now, and Boston is up 3. Oh my goodness! And it's 113-110. So we'll end up with somebody coming out of this and having a 1-game lead. If Philadelphia could steal a game without Joel Embiid, do you play him in the next game?
Yeah, did they? He missed time in the first round, right? Or no?
So he's missed about 14 days now. So he was hurt on not this past Friday, but the Friday before. So that puts it around 2 weeks, about 2 weeks now.
He missed the closeout game of the first series against Brooklyn, and he's missed the opening game of the series against Boston. But Paul Reed with the 2 clutch free throws to cut it to 1.
What a day! What a day to fade fucking James Harden.
Did you really fade James today?
Did you know Embiid wasn't playing though?
No.
Okay, all right.
I made the bet this morning when I thought Joel was still playing.
Yeah, so he was pretty much ruled out on Saturday. So that's just bad research by one of our very own. You know, if you know the podcast motto, it's right in line with what to expect.
Oh, they stopped it. Oh,
oh my God. So sorry, ladies and gentlemen. That was a live reaction. We should have probably just finished this game instead. But the Boston Celtics just threw the ball to Tyrese Maxey. That's why Eric and I yelled, because he was by himself at the top of the three-point line with no Celtic near him. So I don't know who they were throwing to. And he just sprinted down the other way and laid it in. There's about 30 seconds left. But let's go ahead and kick off Kentucky Derby, Nick. You have us geared up for that?
I do. So Kentucky Derby, 20 posts. There are. I closed all my windows that are in the Kentucky Derby. Let me bring it back up. So 2023 Kentucky Derby. I will be personally attending along with the other executive producer of this, Nevada Putnam, the 149th Kentucky Derby. It will be this Saturday. It's a $3 million prize. As those of you who are familiar, and for those of you who aren't, it's the first leg of the Triple Crown. So May 6th is when the Derby is held. May 20th is the Preakness Stakes, and June 10th is the Belmont. Something that I didn't know before this, the three races are restricted to 3-year-old thoroughbreds. So when we refer to a Triple Crown in horse racing, you normally don't race. A horse normally doesn't hit his stride until about 1.5 to 2 years. So it's kind of interesting for people to say, like, Triple Crowns are that exclusive because you get about 1.5 years out of a horse to win a Triple Crown. And a lot of them, they don't race. They race them from the time they're, oh God, what do you call them? I'm going to sound like an amateur here talking about baby horses or juvenile horses.
Ponies?
Fillies. Yeah, so juvenile horses are called fillies. So you race the fillies as they go up. But normally the adult horses aren't racing until like 1.5 to 3 years. So the Triple Crown is exclusive because trainers get like one shot at the Triple Crown, basically with that horse. Let's see here. The Kentucky Derby, by the way, is 1.25 miles. It's on a dirt track. Do you guys know how many horses, speaking of the Triple Crown, how many horses have won the Triple Crown?
13.
That was really good. Yeah, 13.
I was counting in my head, and then I was just like, and guess.
You named the first one and what year?
No.
Okay.
Seabiscuit?
No, Seabiscuit
Eric,
was...
you're ahead of me, but James Harden just splashed! Oh, I'm so sorry, Nick. I'm so sorry. 8 seconds left. Phillies up 2. Jason Tatum just went to the line, sunk 2 clutch free throws. James Harden sauced up defensive ace Al Horford and said, I'm Himothy. All right, let's get back to what you were saying.
It was Sir Barton in 1919 was the first.
There was 0% chance I knew that.
Justified. 2018 was the last horse to do it. Last year, obviously, a very famous Kentucky Derby. The longest or second largest upset in Derby history. Rich Strike, the horse that was an 80-1 long shot, beat the favorite Epicenter to win. This year's field, the lowest odds. The favorite is a horse named Forte. He enters the Derby having won 6 of his last 7 career races, including both of his starts this year. So let me give you guys some stats for betting the Derby. In Derby time, since the Derby has been created.
I was about to ask what that was.
Since 1930, since they expanded the posts out to 20. So that means that there's 20 horses racing the Derby since 1930. These are the winningest posts of all time. And Eric has something to celebrate about. Yes? No?
There was a turnover and a foul, I think, but it's pretty hard to know when it's muted.
The Sixers were on defense with 8 seconds left. Celtics threw it out. Paul Reed got fouled. He's going to the foul line up 2 with like 4 seconds left. So it's looking good.
Jason shoved the fuck out of him.
Sounds like a 76ers win. All right, so the winningest posts in history. I'm going to give you the post number, the percent that it has won of the races since 1930, and then I'm going to give you the horse this year that's racing it, and that's horse's odds. Savi?
Yes.
Okay, so this is winningest post of all time. Number 20, the 20th position. is the winningest spot of all time. 11.1% of the Kentucky Derbies have been won by the furthest outside post. This year, Continuar is the horse racing in that spot in the number 20 post. He is a 50-1 long shot.
You got to sprinkle a little pizza money on that just alone.
This is bad podcasting. Sorry, I should have started from the bottom and worked up. Second winningest post of all time, the 5th spot.
All right. Sorry, 1 second, Nick. Last interruption, and we're all focused now, except for when the Devils Rangers gets into the final few minutes of their Game 7.
Right.
The Philadelphia 76ers, without Joel Embiid, have gone onto the road to Boston and taken Game 1, 119-115, to give them a 1-0 series lead. James Harden, 45 points tonight, highest scoring playoff game in his career. It actually ties a previous iteration in 2015 against Golden State. So James Harden still got it, bro. Yo, Philly fans are what is it, Nick? Grease the birds, go Poles.
Grease the birds, go Poles.
The Philly Tourette's is in full effect.
Yeah, grease the Poles, go Birds.
All right, so we're going to interrupt one more time, and then we'll get right back into Kentucky Derby. Eric, thoughts?
Great win without your MVP. James Harden showed he still has some juice left in, and the best feeling in the world is seeing all these faggy Boston fans leave with sad faces. I hate Boston fans. I'm so glad this happened. Can't wait to win Game 2 with JoJo back. That's all I got to say.
Well, there you have it. Live reaction is not exactly the FCC approved reaction, but
yikes! I think there was about 87 canceled words.
that's why we're in unsanctioned media here, boys.
It's sanctioned by Room 303. So
right.
Let me check with the. Yeah, we're good. All right, so Eric's celebrating his Game 1 victory. Let's get into the second best post to race from, right? So obviously the first one was post 20. We'll get into second now.
Post 20, Continuar, 50-1 long shot. He's won 11.1% of the time. The second winningest post is the number 5 position. The number 5 position has won the race 10.8% of the time. This one is my personal favorite name of a horse racing in the Derby. This is Tap It Thrice. Tap It Thrice.
That sounds like a fucking sex technique, dude.
Tap It Thrice. The third position, the third winningest position, the number 10 position. Tap It Thrice is a 5-1 favorite, or has 5-1 odds.
Okay.
The number 10 position is third. They win the race 10.5% of the time. That's filled this year by Practical Move. They are a 10-1 favorite, and because it is close enough, the number 15 position, filled by the favorite this year, Forte, at 3-1, wins 9.8% of the time.
And that's top 4, or that's top. No, because it was 25, 10, and then
that is top 4 positions.
Top 4.
Correct.
Yep, okay.
Top 4 positions.
Okay.
All right. The top 3 positions that are in the money. Okay, in the money. Number 10, I already mentioned Practical Move. We'll start from the bottom. Number 5 position, Tap It Thrice, has been in the money, which means the top 3 positions in horse racing. It has been in the money 23.7 times of races. The second post, held by Verifying this year at 15-1 odds, has been in the money 26.1% of the time. And the best post already mentioned, the number 10 post in the money, Practical Move, has been in the money almost 30% of the time, 29.1%. What do you guys like, or what do you guys think for, well, let me move on here. I got to sneeze first. No, I don't. I pushed through it. Good for me. All right. Now we'll shift to worst post for in the money, and then we'll get your guys' picks for this. The top 3 worst posts for in the money. The number 12 position has only been in the money 11.5% of the time. That's held by Jace's Road this year, 15-1 odds. The number 17 post has only finished in the money 7% of the time. That's held by Derma Sagate. Sagate?
It's Sotogaki.
Sotogate?
Gaki, I think.
Gaki. Sotogaki. Sotogaki 10-1. Keep that name in mind for what I'm going to list in the category after this. And the worst in the money post, the number 19 position held by Lord Miles, a 30-1 horse this year, has only finished in the money 6.7% of the time. If we look at winning posts, the worst winning posts, number 11 is the third least winning post. 2.4% of the time they have won. That's held by Disarm at 30-1. The number 6 position, held by King's Barnes, has only won 2.2% of the time. At 12-1 odds, King's Barnes is. And the worst post of all time, previously mentioned, Derma Sotogaki, at 10-1 from the number 17 position, boys, never won a Kentucky Derby.
The 17 has never won.
Since 1930, the 17th position has never won a Kentucky Derby. And some of the argument in here is, so people ask why. Some of the argument is in here, those middle positions, a lot of horses either trying to stay to the outside or get to that inside rail. A lot of them run into each other. You're not going to find a lot of value. What I would say in horse racing, and I'm not a horse racing expert by all means, but if you can find a horse that you like on the outside or on the inside, or one of the fastest horses, someone who gets out of the gate very fast, you will have a lot of success. So with that being said, what are we thinking, boys? First of all, Eric, do you have the list of horses pulled up?
I do, actually.
Okay, so first of all, let's do a fun thing. I gave you my favorite name, Tap It Thrice, coming out of the number 5 position. What are your favorite names for the Kentucky Derby?
So I got to go with one. I'm going to go with 2 Phils because my dearest buddy in the world, his name's Phil. And there is 2 of them. There's the married Phil, and then there's the Phil that's with me. So I can really relate to that horse. So that's my favorite one.
I was literally about to say that was the one you were going to pick.
2
Really?
Phils coming out of the number 3
looked
position.
at this list, and I was like, if he doesn't pick 2 Phils, then I don't actually know Eric. That's fucking hysterical.
2 Phils coming out of the number 3 position, 12-1 horse.
First of all, I've never been so disappointed in a list of horse names before at the Kentucky Derby. That's what is really bothering me with this whole list is none of them are dope. None of them are really awful, but I'm going 18, Rocket Can, 15-1.
Okay. Rocket Can, 15-1. Okay, that's a good one.
That's my favorite name. All the other names suck.
All right, what do we think for your picks coming out after the stats that I gave you, coming either in the money to finish or winning posts?
But 1 second before we get into that. Also eligible shits on the rest of the field. Ready for these names? Cyclone Mischief, Mandarin Hero,
Okay.
King Russell. All better. All better. So based on your analysis, those little tidbits that you have given us, I'm going to go ahead and take a trifecta of Tappet tries to win, verifying to finish second, and practical move to finish third.
Okay, Eric?
So I know you said the 17th spot has never won, but coming off of the trip to Japan, everything seems to be coming up Japan this year for me. So I'm going to go with the horse trained by Hidetaka Otonashi, Derma Sotogake at 10-1 to win it out of the 17. And I got 2 Phils coming in second, and I'll go with Angel of Empire in the 14th coming in third.
Okay, so I mentioned you guys speed figures before, right? So the fastest horse in this year's field is the number 10 position Practical Move. That's the one I like. I'll take Practical Move to win. I'll take. That's a 10-1. I will take. Let's go. Tap it Trice to get in the money. I'll also pick Forte to be in the money. That's the favorite. I will also be sprinkling a little bit of pizza money on that number 20 post Continuar.
I was gonna make a point that I will also bet Dark Horse Continuar. I will be with you on that one, Nick. For sure, that's 100%. The one that's gonna get its own solo bet. Well, not the only one that's gonna get its own solo bet, but besides the trifecta that I was putting, that's what I was pushing at. So you're saying that you have Practical Move first, Tap It Try second, and what was the other one? Oh, I forgot. Forte.
And then I'll pick Forte. Let's see. Hold on. Let me see between Tap It Trice and Forte who I want. I will take. Ooh, this is a good question. Trying to look at Forte's stats here. I will take Forte to finish second. Tap It Trice to finish third.
Okay. Trying to figure out which one of these trainers has won before, bro, because that might affect somebody that I also dart throw. So, it's this article's not gonna tell me. I was just, I'm not really too familiar with jockeys, but I figure if you have a jockey that's won before, it's probably a good way to bet for this. I don't know how often jockeys switch either. Like if once the horse is done, are they done? I doubt that, but
no, jockeys run a lot.
Yeah, I figure they stick around and they just move from team to team, or
right.
There's I feel like they're like NASCAR drivers. So let's see. Junior Alvarado best finishes 4th in 2016. Javier Castellano. Junior is riding Rocket Can. Javier Castellano, 3rd in 2018. He's riding Mage. Manny Franco, 2nd in 2020. He's riding Hit Show. Tyler, 7th in 2019. He's riding Verifying. Florent, 1 in 2021, riding Mandaloon. And so he's riding Jace's Road. James Graham, 8th in 2018. He's riding Confidence Game. Brian, Sun Thunder, 8th in 2017. Juan Hernandez never raced at a Derby. He's riding Skinner.
So what I will say to a lot of people is that you had Rich Strokes win last year, 80-1, second largest upset in history. Do not pick big horses to win. I believe last. Oh, that's another thing I have pulled up. Horses to win typically are, if I can find it, past winners of the Derby. So we know last year, 2022, the 2021 horse was a 12-1 favorite. 12-1. That's that controversy, right, in which Medina Spirit finished first, but got drug tested.
And they just disqualified him.
And they disqualified him, right? I actually don't know what odds Medina. Eric, can you look up what odds Medina Spirit was for
last year?
Never mind, I found it, 12-1.
Oh.
So both horses were 12-1. In 2020, Authentic won it at 8-1. It was the second lowest odds. Country House won it 30-1. Maximum Security won it. Sorry, if you remember 2019, Maximum Security won it, but that was the disqualification for interference in that at a not a good track or at a muddy track. Sorry. Maximum Spirit was the favorite at 9-1, so that's the last favorite to quote unquote win. 2018 Justified won. 2017 Always Dreaming, the favorite one. So we had a run of basically from 2013 to 2014 till 2016, all favorites won that race. And then 2017, Always Dreaming was 9-2. So that's you've heard our bets, right? I'll take Practical Money, Forte, and Tap It Trice, a little bit of pizza money on Continue R at 50-1.
I have to change my pick, bro. I'll just add it as a sprinkled pizza money. The jockey for Forte is Puerto Rican, so I'm picking Forte to win it all. Oh, although
Okay.
King's Barnes jockey is Puerto Rican as well.
And maybe it's time for a comeback of the favorites.
Oh, Practical Move is Puerto Rican jockey as well. All right.
Ride with me.
Reincarnate Puerto Rico as well. Who knew Puerto Rico was such?
Puerto Rico just pumps out jockeys, I guess.
Jermaine, can you give me your 3 again? Because I that seems to have changed a couple times, and I deleted everything on accident.
Yeah, no, I was keeping the 3 the same. I was just saying I was also betting. So I had
Tap It Thrice first.
I did no, yeah, was it Tap It Trice first?
Yeah, you had Tap It Thrice first, and then you had Practical Move, right?
No, I had Tap It Trice, Verifying, and then Practical Move to finish.
There we go.
I forget which order it was. I think Tap It Trice I did have. I'm pretty sure I had them first. But if you change it, we'll put Practical Move first and then Tap It Trice third. We'll keep Verifying locked in second. I'm going to hop on board with Nick after my boy, the Puerto Rican jockey, swayed me.
Whoop, whoop.
So as for the fans of last year's Kentucky Derby coverage, we unfortunately found out this morning that there is no Forrester's Turtle Race this year. So Room 303 is in discussions with Old Forester to purchase the sponsorship rights. We've offered them a handful of beads and a glass jar. We're hoping that we can piggyback on the way our ancestors traded, and we can get these sponsorship rights. We'll keep you posted, though.
We are willing to half fill the jar with dirt.
They have to fill the other half, though.
Yes, they have to provide their own dirt to fill their half.
All right, so that wraps up the Kentucky Derby, which kicks off this Saturday. I'll be definitely paying attention. I'll definitely have some money on some of these horses. If there's anything that I love, it's definitely betting on horse races.
Oh yeah, very fun. I've never been going for the first time. I think it's gonna be a lot of fun. Although podcast listener Blake Reynolds said that apparently like you have to bet online now with the Derby.
Maybe because of COVID.
Maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you're for sure gonna find out. Hopefully you download the app beforehand, so you can look at that. But that wraps up the Kentucky Derby. We're gonna actually pause here before we get into the NFL draft coverage to close out the show to let E come up with a communion with E on the spot. So let's see how fun this is.
Communion with E on the spot? Damn, this is tough.
I tell you, we have 2 episodes.
Yeah. All right. If you're a GM, right? You're the GM. You have. This is only because of an example of what happened this draft. You have a guy who had a small issue off the court or off the field, and you think, he might have some character issues, but he's clearly the number 1 player on the board. You're GM. You're shipping this franchise. You're the captain of this franchise. Are you taking somebody like that, or are you taking the safe pick who's maybe not be as talented?
Yeah, I don't care about character issues.
Same.
Money fixes a lot of character issues.
Or it exacerbates them.
Listen, here's the thing. As a GM, you have to build your locker room around guys that are leaders of men, right? I don't care who they are. I don't care what position they play. You need savvy veterans who know how to take rookies under their arm, and you need about 5 to 6 of these guys, right? That can take rookies under their arm and say, hey, like, don't be too much of an idiot. You need dogs to win in the NFL. And if I'm taking, like, I don't want my quarterback to have character issues necessarily. Right? I say that as one of my favorite quarterbacks of all time has, like, Cam Newton has most of the character issues. Right. I kind of, the first thing that popped into my head, Jermaine, I don't know if it did for you. Everybody gave Dion a lot of flack for when he was talking about how he recruits guys. It's like, I want a quarterback who's smart, who, has a good GPA, who's able to think through stuff. But if I got like O-line, D-men, linebackers, like, I want them to be dogs.
He just said what everyone thinks.
Right.
So, like, I don't really understand why he got flack for it. I think it's just because Dion is always been a lightning rod. So I think that's just what it is. But no, I'm taking the player. If he is a good player, I expect my coaching staff, I expect my front office, and I expect my team to be able to get this player to play New Orleans Saints football. If you pass on a player for character issues, then you do not have the infrastructure in place to allow these prospects to be successful.
Yeah. So what do you think of this year? And I know we're going to transition in here into the draft, but I know not all of them had the need for a DT, but do you think some of those franchises made a mistake by taking that one isolated incident and letting him fall?
Well,
is this about to be a brag on the Eagles?
No, I'm asking.
It wasn't isolated. It wasn't isolated, by the way. He showed up overweight to his pro day. So, like, the man didn't take his fitness seriously for him to get drafted. So there are several things that snowballed on this. It wasn't the isolated incident that led to the death of a trainer of the Georgia training staff and a player from the Georgia playing staff. So, like, that's also significant, right? Participating in the street race that resulted in death of people means you do not have good judgment. Right, so that those things, but no, the Chicago Bears should not have traded back. Like, it should not have, because they needed a defensive tackle.
Mm-hmm.
So much so that they drafted two later on in the draft. So why aren't you taking the best player in the draft? Yeah, so I don't know. A ton of these teams are regret not taking this guy.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's my thoughts on it. What are your thoughts on it?
Mine, you take the best player available. And if you have to sit down and monitor him and put him on a check-in schedule where you let me know when you're home and you have a babysitter, it is what it is. We're in this industry to do one thing. We're in this business to do one thing, and that's to win Super Bowls. And if I'm not doing everything I can to get there, then you're not trying to win a Super Bowl, honestly. So if you take the best player there and then you mold him into a good character person, you can do it. And that's just how I feel about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that goes along to, I think we're all talking of the same, we're all talking the same ilk, right? It's you need guys who are a little bit off their rocker to play NFL football and to be pretty good at it, right? You need guys that prioritize athleticism over being nice people. But you need a group of, if we're building a pyramid, you need the guys at the top to be highly influential leaders who can kind of tell those guys sometimes to knock it the fuck off.
Mm-hmm.
Or you need guys that so right to this point, right? I was talking to Tom the other day, my buddy Tom the other day, huge Georgia Bulldogs fan. They think and we'll get into it later in the draft, but they think some of Jalen Carter's issues stem from the fact that they started when Jordan Davis left. And Jordan Davis was kind of that big brother to Jalen Carter who kind of kept him in line a little bit. So
that makes sense. That makes sense that you draft him.
Right. So to the point, right? You draft him if you can get this guy that was almost a consensus top 3 guy, right? Mm-hmm. You know, if they're not quarterback hungry teams at the top of the draft, guys were taken. He's the best prospect in the draft, right?
Yeah.
But now because of character issues, he's not anymore.
See, right? that goes back to something I said on the podcast before, and I think everybody kind of took it as I was just hating on the Memphis Grizzlies. But Taylor Jenkins should not be the coach of that team, because not only did Ja Morant do one thing and then another thing, and then he could just continue to do things. If you're my head coach, you are the law on that team. What you say goes. And if you can't control your superstar, you can't be the head coach. I don't care what your X's and O's look like. You're the leader of grown men. Grown men aren't, they're not easy to deal with. They're not going to just bend to what you say. You have to break them. And Taylor Jenkins isn't doing that. He's not breaking Ja Morant. He's letting him do whatever he wants because he's feeding him, he's feeding into the media hype. And I think as a GM, you have to consider that as like the main option. Like, look, my coach can't break these players or mold them into good character guys. He needs to go. I need somebody who can come in here and do that. That's why you look at these NFL coaches that like are psychotic, but they have the best relationships with their players because they treat them like children, and they mold.
We'll go off the top of the head. The guy that since he started coaching the NFL has not had a losing season in the NFL, right? And you look at the absolute psychopaths that once they have left the Pittsburgh Steelers have gone crazy. I mean, AB, Le'Veon Bell. I mean, he wins with guys like Devlin Duck Hodges. Like he's obviously a guy that keeps the crazy down and can build maybe a not so great guy up with good coaching. So, let's get into it, Eric. And I'll let you be a homer for this. Who is your best NFL draft?
So my homer pick is going to be the Philadelphia Eagles, right? But that also includes
Eric,
a
you
draft.
Don't have another homer pick.
No, because
homer pick is your home team.
No, I was going to say Atlanta because they took Bijan and they're going to pair him with all those offensive weapons. But no, it is Philly. If you include draft day trades,
Desmond Ritter handing the football and throwing it.
True. But yeah, so the homer pick, Philadelphia, in my opinion, everything they did. And now that what you said about Jordan Davis leaving Georgia, and that's when the issues with Jalen Carter started, bringing him in to have his big brother again to produce at that level just makes me even happier about the way the draft went for us. We addressed a lot of needs on defense, and we made a trade for a pass catching back who, if he can stay healthy, is going to be a game changer for us. So I know it's the homer pick. I was going to try not to go with it, but the Philadelphia Eagles won this draft just in general. And Howie Roseman is playing chess. There's a few other GMs playing chess, but the most of them are playing checkers.
All right, Jermaine, your best NFL draft. The Pittsburgh Eagles are off the board already, or the Philadelphia Bulldogs are off the board already.
So I'm going to spotlight a few of the players that a few of the teams that I think did a good job overall. Detroit Lions, despite getting crushed for their day one picks, I actually think they did a pretty good job.
Professional podcast, I have Detroit as having one of the better drafts. I have some of the worst drafts, Detroit first round.
Yeah, exactly. So that's kind of why you have that situation there. Right. So the Seattle Seahawks did a good job. I'm actually going to sit here and take a second to legitimately discuss, a team that is often crucified for their drafts, right? Sometimes justified, sometimes not justified. But I'm going to go with the Green Bay Packers as my big time winner this year. For a handful of reasons. They got an excellent defensive end up front. So he's going to play outside linebacker, right? Luke Van Ness. They took 2 tight ends, right? In a very deep tight end class. And so they took Luke Musgrave out of Oregon State and they took Tucker Kraft out of South Dakota State. And they're trying to gear up their tight end position for a successful Jordan Love, who we don't know if he has the magic that Aaron Rodgers did with the lack of weapons that they usually give him. They took Jaden Reed out of Michigan State. I believe I want to get this right. So let me make sure I get his school correctly. But he played for like a Western or Eastern Michigan. I'm looking it up right now. What was that?
Before transferring, you mean?
Before transferring to Michigan State. Yeah, that's correct.
Western Michigan.
So at Western Michigan, he was an absolute dog, putting up 1,500 and something yards, multiple touchdowns. He was one of their biggest offensive threats, and transferred to Michigan State, a school that is known to run the football and not have good quarterbacks. Right? And you saw his statistics drop from the year over year, right? So just a few stats to gas this kid up. 56, 797, and 8 touchdowns in his freshman year, right? He's also a kick return threat. And then he had let's see. And then he led the Spartans with 33 receptions in 2020, starting all season. Yeah, I think he just got crushed by what exactly happened, with the Michigan State quarterbacks. Michigan State quarterbacks never develop. I don't know if it's the coaching system or anything like that, but there's just always a disconnect. There's always some big name guy who goes there and he ends up sucking all kinds of butt. And so I think what they did there was another solid draft pick, especially in a day 2 type of situation. And then they drafted another wide receiver in round 5, right, out of Virginia, Dontavion Wicks. They had added linebacker depth again with Colby Wooden, Carl Brooks, for a defense that usually gets eaten up in the run game. It's good to add linebackers who can come downfield and stop it. And then one of the more interesting picks is this Lou Nichols III out of running back out of in round 7, right? So he's obviously a round 7 pick, but he's from Central Michigan, MAC freshman of the year, but he was limited in 2022 due to rushing. But he caught 40 passes and 338 yards the year before. In 2021, he led the FBS with 341 carries and 18,048 yards, tying for 10th. Then he had 16 rushing touchdowns, right? That was him in a full healthy season. That man was given the rock at all. Like, they literally said, hey, we're going to run the football 40 times a game. and my man's delivered for them in a big way. So he most likely fell down the board because of that. And I think it's an interesting depth piece to add to the situation with Aaron Jones' contract situation. We don't really know if AJ Dillon is good or not. I would love your guys' opinion on that. But in a team that is completely in flux and moving forward, but that was still pretty good last year and was in the playoffs the year before, I think they addressed a ton of holes and they make themselves a very interesting team in a lackluster division.
Yeah, I mean, and 13 draft picks, right? You're going to hit on some of them, right? With
you would hope.
If you're not a very good GM in the NFL, you're probably going to hit on at least 1 or 2 of those guys. They got wide receivers. Were they the best pass catchers in the draft? I would say probably not, but they addressed both sides of the ball, and that's a good thing you can do. I've already highlighted, or what we talked about a little bit pre-show. The Steelers had a great draft. I'll list some names off or some teams off as we go, but highlighting some of the Steelers to get Broderick Jones. At 14 out of Georgia. He was one of my best linemen in the draft. You get Joey Porter with the first pick of the second round. He was a mid-first round guy. Keanu Benton, the D lineman out of Wisconsin. I mean, I think it's a great draft that the Steelers had. I really like what the Raiders did in the draft, right? So you get Tyree Wilson with the sixth pick, and an edge rusher that we were talking about going top 5 potentially, right? You got him at 7. There's not a lot of we talked about this pre-show. There's no steals in the first round, right? Because every one of these guys is a first round talent. We don't know how they're going to pan out, but it's nice to grab a guy like Tyree Wilson a little bit below the picks that he was projected. Michael Mayer to get Michael Mayer, geez, I can't talk. Michael Mayer in the second round. That's good. Byron Young, a D lineman out of Alabama, 3rd round steal. And then my final pick is for best drafts. I'm going to go with Carolina if they didn't give up DJ Moore. Carolina, I think, had a fantastic draft. I think the value that they gave up, though, for that draft pick, just they're right on the outside looking in. I'd give them like B+.
I felt like Carolina reached a lot on day 2. And they took some guys that they could have potentially got on day 3. So that's one. I actually am very low overall on their draft. I mean, it's pretty hard to be, to give a fair grade to a team that only has 5 picks. I love that they added Jonathan Mingo, an Ole Miss wide receiver, with Bryce Young. I'm not a fan of their other 3 picks. DJ Johnson, there were better edges on the board at pick 80 in round 3. And they went for a toolsy guy, a tradey guy, vice a guy who's had production or can be an impact player. That DJ Johnson isn't going to help them now. They're going to have to develop that product. So I don't feel like trading for Bryce Love and then developing a prospect when you have the defense in position, when you have the offensive line in position, really helps in that situation. So I do agree with your analysis on the on the DJ Moore situation of that. I usually bring up like maybe someone else wanted the first, right? And someone else had a better offer. And that is why Carolina decided to add him in. And what's unfortunate is we were going to see him with a good quarterback for the first time, right? There are question marks about Justin Fields on if he is or if he isn't a good quarterback. I think he's an explosive playmaker, but who do you think is a better passer, Justin Fields or Bryce? I almost said Love again. Bryce Young.
Who's a better passer than? I think Bryce Young is a better passer than Justin Fields. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Me too. I was just wanted to make sure that I wasn't the only crazy town USA who went that way. So honorable mentions for best draft classes, Cleveland Browns and San Francisco 49ers, right? Didn't have a lot of high day 1, day 2 picks. In fact, I believe Cleveland's first pick overall was round 3, pick 74, but they crushed it with the wide receiver Cedric Tillman out of Tennessee. Came back in round 4, were able to snag DeJuan Jones of Ohio State, who I don't understand why he fell as far as he went. They closed their draft out, drafting center Luke Whippler out of Ohio State to pair with DeJuan Jones. So those are 2 more pieces for your offensive line. The Isaiah McGuire edge rush pick out of Missouri. So I really think they added good value for all their pieces, and they added an interior lineman in round 3 out of Baylor. I really think they did a very, very good job. Do you guys have any other honorable mentions?
I would say Tennessee is probably up there too, but let's get into worst. Let's get into worst. Well, Eric, you got any other honorable mentions?
I do not.
Okay. We already alluded to it, Jermaine. I think you said Carolina is one of your worst drafts. I said Detroit's first round. Not really guys that I can get behind in terms of why do you select Jahmyr Gibbs, a guy that I never saw mentioned in the first round. Why do you select him with a top 15 pick? And then with the 18th pick, Jack Campbell. I mean, he's a Dan Campbell guy for sure, but I don't know that he's a number 18 guy overall. I did like the Lions adding Brian Branch and Hayden Hooker in rounds 2 and 3, but their first round, their day 1 picks are awful.
So you go with the Detroit Lions is one of the worst, or that was an honorable mention?
Yeah, Detroit Lions, honorable, or one of my worst. I'll also add. That's my worst. So I'll sit and listen. First time caller, long time listener. Thanks, guys.
All right, who do you guys your number one loser?
So for me, it was the Minnesota Vikings. Addison, first round pick, undersized. There was questions about if he's going to be able to handle the physicality of the NFL. The running back they drafted had more fumbles than he did catches in his collegiate career. And the two cornerbacks that they had were beneficiaries of having stud corners opposite of them, and they didn't produce as high to the level as their expectations were coming into college. So, I didn't like it. It's really hard. It was really hard to sit. I was going through the draft teams here, and I couldn't really penalize San Francisco for not having a pick until the third round. You can't penalize Denver for not having a pick until the second or third round. I didn't like Detroit's picks, but they still got some value later in the draft. And the last team I had written down was the New York Jets. But as I went back and analyzed it, Will McDonald.
I still got to be able to pick here, sir.
Yeah. All right. I didn't know I was stealing your pick. Hopefully, I didn't steal it. But yeah.
No. I was just like, yo, you just started naming more teams. I was like, yo, like let me get one in. We'll get back to your honorable mentions.
No doubt.
My biggest loser is the Dallas Cowboys. So, look, the Dallas Cowboys couldn't stop the run to save their life. So they went out and got defensive interior Mozzie Smith out of Michigan. Okay, that's perfectly fine. You're not going to gas up you're not going to gas up a fan base with that sort of pick, but you're going to win a ton of football games. So I'm not necessarily knocking that one. I'm not a fan of the tight end that Dallas actually settled on in a very, very deep linebacker class. I mean, in a tight end class. So I think on top of that, I think they even reached for him, right? When there was better tight end talent on the board. So that kind of just rubbed me the wrong way. Look, don't get me wrong. I love DeMarvion Overshown, but he needs work. And you needed a linebacker that you could slot in to allow Micah Parsons to play the edge. If DeMarvion Overshown doesn't take that leap in the training camp, you're going to be in the same situation where you can't allow your 26.5 sack leader in the last 2 years to actually go and get the quarterback. So if that doesn't hit, it puts them back where they are. I know they doubled down with another edge on top of that after DeMarvion. They took Asem Richards out of North Carolina, offensive tackle. Again, there was better tackles available in the fourth, in the third that could have really helped this team, and they waited till round 5 to grab this guy. Not a big fan of his overall. I love investing in it, but yeah, dude, he's not a good run blocker. And Dallas Cowboys are good. Dak Prescott is good when you can run the football, right? Yeah. When Dak Prescott can play Kirk Cousins football because they're the same quarterback, when they can play action, they can move him out of the pocket. That's how Dak Prescott succeeds. And you drafted a not very good run blocker. Now, can you coach that up? Absolutely, sure. That's perfectly fine. But again, that's not something that I think helps them move the needle this year. And for a team that had so many holes, they didn't Amari Cooper being gone was a big deal for them, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So you didn't draft a wide receiver until round 7?
I mean, they did bring in Brandon Cooks in free agency.
Okay.
I'm not saying
30-year-old Brandon Cooks though, like that. Yeah. That's the answer.
I'm saying, if you look at the board, you have Brandon Cooks who still has produced with mediocre quarterbacks as a placeholder maybe there's a receiver you like in the next draft a little better. I'm just trying to use logic here as to why they did it. I actually didn't like their draft, but I didn't want to pick them as the Eagles fan on the podcast. But Mozzie Smith, undersized. They passed on the tight end that they've been talking about for 2 years. They've been talking about this.
You said Dalton Kincaid was drafted before them. Buffalo Bills.
No, Meyer was the one they wanted. Mayer, whatever his name pronounced. Mayer was the guy.
Love another name tight end.
They did.
I thought you told me it was Dalton Kincaid they were.
No. We all thought Kincaid was the best. The Cowboys love Mayer, and he was there, and they didn't take him. And what have we seen Cowboys football be? Run the ball, solid tight end. They I don't know, whatever. But that's just me being biased because I hate the Cowboys and think their organization should burn to the ground. But anyway.
Yeah, so Eric jumped in to pile on to how bad I thought this draft was. But Tony Pollard hurt at the end of the season, correct? Can you tell me what Tony Pollard had injury-wise? Was ACL. It ACL? It was ACL? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm just making sure we're relax.
I'm not even being aggressive.
And then they cut Zeke. And you didn't draft a running back until round 6? I really don't understand what they're doing. I really didn't. So in a draft, and one of the reasons why their draft gets hammered even more is, bro, your direct rival crushed this draft and also picked up DeAndre Swift, right? So he counts because they traded draft capital for him as part of the draft. And DeAndre Swift, dog, is crazy. And then so they add DeAndre Swift and you cut Ezekiel Elliott.
It's crazy because DeAndre Swift is the closest thing to an NFL or to an Eagles style running back. The only one I would say is closer is Austin Eckler. Austin Eckler is the only person that would fit in that offense better.
You don't throw passes to running backs. I don't think Austin Eckler fits in that offense.
Then you couldn't complete 3 or 5 passes in the league.
What?
You just said you don't throw passes to running backs.
I just said the Philadelphia Eagles offense does not throw passes to running backs.
I was like, are you changing the philosophy that's getting...
No, I can complete 5 passes.
Okay. All right.
Can I complete 5 passes for positive yardage overall? That is not something I said, sir.
That's on him, man.
I put a playmaker in a position to make a play. That is a different conversation. Nobody ever asked me if I could get positive yards. Nobody asked me if I was going to get 170 yards. Those were never things that came out of my fat face. So that's not it. So he broke his fibula. That sounds way more painful than an ACL. Yeah, so overall, not a big fan of the Cowboys draft. Now, here's what I will say. I do think the Cowboys got players who can make plays, who can help this football team. But I don't think it helps them this year. I don't think all of them help them this year. And that is the concerning part because the roster is aging and you're getting closer and closer to Micah Parsons being like, deuces, I don't want to sign here.
Yeah, I agree with you. There's a lot of guys that the Cowboys drafted. If you were to go on an Excel spreadsheet and say, match position needs with positions, did the Cowboys do it? Yes. Matched. They needed line, they needed this position. They matched a guy in that position. Was he the right guy to take? I don't necessarily think so. But they got a guy there, and what do we know? 5 years from now, we might be like, this is one of the greatest Dallas Cowboys. This is one of the greatest drafts of all time.
Yeah, so let's see. Yeah, exactly. And that's the other thing, right? So NFL drafts are graded on potential and players that you scouted against other players in their class, right? But to be successful, it tremendously matters where you get drafted to. So if you get drafted to a bad situation, see one DeAndre Swift, you could end up not living up to expectations. Coming out of Georgia, DeAndre Swift was a fucking dog.
Well, yeah, I mean, he was a dog in college too because he went to Georgia. Oh, but yeah, I mean, like you look at it, like it's a good point, right? You're graded against the guys in your class after playing against guys. Sometimes, most guys are plus or minus 2 years, 3 years away, or 2 years away from you, right? When you get to the league, it's how you play against guys that are, there's a huge canyon of guys that are, sometimes 10 plus years in the league ahead of you, and how do you play against those guys, right?
Yeah, bro. And then here's the thing: they drafted that Kansas State running back. Look, I just talked about how good Lou Nichols was, right? The Central Michigan running back that Green Bay picked up in round 7, right? He was hurt in 2022, so Deuce Vaughn is 5'5". You cut Zeke. Tony Pollard broke a fibula, and you drafted a 5'5", 179 running back.
And you drafted Darren Sproles.
That's a special teamer.
Bro, like, he had 43 receptions. He had in 2022. His highest as in his career was 49. He never eclipsed the 500 receiving yard mark. What are you doing drafting a 5'5" guy? All right, so Dallas Cowboys. I picked them for a shit draft. That's who I picked. Long story short.
Eric, you got any? Who'd you pick? Did you pick somebody?
The Vikings.
Okay. Did you explain why you picked the Vikings?
Yeah.
When you inexplicably dropped out.
I will give one more, and that's just I don't think Denver had a bad draft. I think Denver got a all-time bad return when you look at the Russell Wilson trade.
Oh, yeah. So you're factoring that in.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. An all-time bad return. If you guys don't know what I'm talking about, go look it up for the picks that they got.
I will say this. The Denver Broncos have a white cornerback, so they instantly won for me.
Oh, true. Good point. Yeah. Good counterpoint.
Reverse card. I agree with what you were saying as a whole, but you have Riley Moss across Patrick Surtain II, and I'm instantly saying that you have one of the best secondaries in the NFL. I think Riley Moss is actually a pretty good corner. He might have a few concentration issues, but he played 2,500 defensive snaps at Iowa. You know what I mean? He did a lot of zone coverage. So if you press up with Patrick Surtain, you can play zone on the opposite end. And he has great eyes for him to read the quarterback and make plays to take them out. He's a little stiff, but he has the ability to turn and run with wide receivers. Right?
The white guy?
Yeah. So, dude, I looked up I saw his 40 time. Let me see if I can't find Riley Moss's 40 time. Let me look that up, because I think he runs like a 4.45 or something.
Damn. Is he like full white? Dude, it's the most searched thing on Google.
Hey, your boy 4.45. Your boy Skinny P with the memory on lock. 4.45, bro. He's 6'1", 193, and he runs a 4.45, bro. Jason Sehorn would be proud, bro.
Jason Sehorn would be proud.
All right, I got nothing else as far as the draft goes. I love the Saints draft class. I don't think they were a winner. I don't think they were a loser. I think they were somewhere in the middle, maybe B minus. I think they got a lot of value. Kendre Miller out of TCU is a fantastic addition to the Saints roster. So it'll be very interesting to see. We're going to need to coach him up on catching to see if he's a more dynamic playmaker, but I'm hoping that TCU didn't use him as well in the past game, and that's why he wasn't that good. But I digress. I just had to get a little Saints love in there. Nick, before we sign off, what are your thoughts about the number 1 overall pick?
So I think I've said this a lot, and I don't know if I've ever said it on the podcast, but I know I've said it to anybody that asked me what my thoughts are on the pick. you look at guys like Kyrie Murray, you look at guys like Russell Wilson, you look at guys like Drew Brees, right? The reason those short guys are successful is because they find what works in their game as a short guy. And the guys that aren't successful are the short guys that try to do what tall quarterbacks can do. You don't see Bryce Young have a lot of balls batted down, right? He's 3-year starter at Alabama. At least 2-year starter at Alabama. Right?
Eric's shaking his head yes, so I will say yes.
Okay, so 3-year starter. He's faced some of the best defenses in the nation, right? He faced the Georgia Bulldogs the last 2 years. The guy knows how to throw, right? He knows how to throw in windows. He knows how to use his height. I'm saying work around his height, maybe. I kind of go back to my last rookie quarterback experience when I said when I said that I wasn't going to support Cam Newton. I'm very wary to support Bryce Young.
I don't want to hear it from you. You have a Jimmy Clausen jersey.
I do have a Jimmy Clausen jersey.
Yeah, so you don't get to say that. No, you're a Bryce Young fan.
Not yet.
Oh, you had a Jimmy Clausen jersey. He wasn't on the team long enough for you to have
and
bought
I said
in.
In the 2011 draft, I said all we need is to get AJ Green and Jimmy Clausen will be a good quarterback. That's the statement that came out of my mouth, and I'm still going to continue to say I don't support Bryce Young yet. Not that I wanted anybody else. I just didn't want Anthony Richardson or Will Levis. So that's ultimately what my analysis of the first pick is.
I honestly think Anthony Richardson would have been a great pick, dude.
Maybe.
With Frank Reich and the tools that he has, I mean, Jalen Hurts, eat your heart out, but I think we got a guy who's already left you, bro. He might be a more dynamic athlete than Lamar Jackson. Might. I'm not going out on a limb there. But I think that's all we have for this episode, correct?
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. It's like you guys shaking your head instead of saying something.
Verbal.
Is ridiculous.
Well, I'm just going to say to you, verbal.
I was like, the fuck is happening right now? All right, we got nothing else for you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining in for our Kentucky Derby. We apologize that Room 303 hasn't gained sponsorship rights on the Turtle Derby. We look to have that issue remediated and mitigated by the 2024 race. That way we can bring you those stealth fast turtles. NFL draft coverage. We gave you one winner and one loser from each of us. We touched bases on a few of the other teams that had some impressive picks out there. We'd be much maligned if we didn't shout out the worst division of football last year, despite how people want to talk about it. The AFC South. They were so bad that 3 of the 4 teams all took quarterbacks in the top 35, 36 picks. So if you thought the NFC South was worse than the AFC South, fucking watch football, you fucking idiots. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at Podcast Room 303. I've been your host, Jermaine Cologne Mendez. This has been my co-host, Nicholas Moorhan. And as always, we have with us the EP. We'll see you next time when you come on down and step into the room.